Welcome to this episode of Your Property Business, the video podcasts that help you get the most out of your own property business.
Do you think that was being in the market and inflation doing what it does, or do you think it was adding value because you started with something that was great?
Absolutely both. So yeah. when I look back now and I look at the time it took us to get the purchase through was over a year. So it's about 13 months from first inquiry with a lender to conveyancing complete and contracts exchanged and title handed over to us essentially. So that's a really long period. It then took a further nearly a year or so to build out and us moving in. So that's a really long time. Obviously, during that time, we had agreed a price for the land purchase, and we had done a lot of the work ourselves where possible, as well as kind of arranging other trades ourselves again where possible. In order to keep the costs down, because we genuinely had a very tight budget, but we had plenty of time. You know, so you'll remember in my presentation where I was talking about jumping in the party bus and going and picking up lengths of worktop. So we had time to do. If that saved us 250 quid, or sometimes more in many cases, instead we were paying for the half a day and a tank of fuel to go and pick up, some nice worktop wherever. We could do that. We could afford to do that. We did all of that work, and the end result was a really high quality finish because we're doing it. And because of the nature of the project, the time it took, and the market when we came out of it, which was
what year was it? What was that 2 year period from offer to completion?
We moved in late 2018. Completion certificate wasn't issued until a little while after that, sort of like May the following year. At which point, it was official that the dwelling was finished, the dwelling was complete, and building control had signed it off as a habitable dwelling, which was a real turning point. That was a real, sort of, pat on the back that you've done it. So much stronger market than today. Unfortunately, we're now in November 23, so it's slightly different.
It doesn't feel. I can't quite recall the sort of the property graphs during that 2 year period, but it doesn't. I mean, was it a massively high growth period, or was it just standard 3 to 5% or whatever number is? Because
I will say that the difference is probably not just in property prices. I think actually in Norfolk, property prices have remained relatively stable. I don't think we've taken a huge hit or a massive correction. But certainly in regards to lending, so the lending situation was very different. To give you some context, the rate that we paid for our development finance, which was actually that's not quite bridging, but it's similar-ish in the same sense. You're getting a cash payout to do the works, and that's released in stages. It's quite high risk for the lender, obviously, because they're lending you on the basis that you will complete the works, not that there's something there to lend against, other than, like I say, some earth and a few blocks in the ground. And our rate, I think we paid about 5.5% on that, maybe between 5
on the development finance.
Which again, that was high. That was considered high risk and a high rate to pay for that type of finance. Whereas now I'm getting a similar rate on the HMO that I'm purchasing, which is it's a very different landscape now. So that on that basis alone, it's a much more difficult proposition to look at doing that now if you were to try and make the numbers stack up based on the cost of finance. Unfortunately.
Okay. So I guess you had that finance for a decent period of time, didn't you? Because if it was a relatively long build, or it would have cost more because of that. But the tie-up is that you're not paying people to do it.
Exactly. So we were paying for finance costs throughout, but it was obviously far less impactful than if we had, had to pay cash or had to get a bridge for the entire thing, because we were purchasing a plot of land. Obviously, that cost is much less than if you were buying an entire property that already exists. We actually we were paying a smaller deposit amount and getting a smaller loan, and paying far less in stamp duty because the cost of the purchase was essentially half because you're only paying for the land. So yeah, that was my bonus.
Yeah, no, smashing. Talk me through some of the sort of the challenges that you had. I mean, I guess it's a long process, but I'm not going to cover it all. But how do you, from a point of not knowing how to build a house, which is most people's position, including mine, how did you start from no knowledge to actually making it happen, and what various challenges that you don't know that happened in between?
So I'll just start by saying that is half the reason I'm here, is because I want to demonstrate how much it is possible to achieve, even if you are starting from a position of relatively minimal knowledge, because that is absolutely the position we were in when we started. We had done one refurb, which gave us a good understanding. You learn by doing. So we got in there again. We got hands dirty for that one as well. Got stuck in, and we learned a lot. Obviously, doing a new build is a whole other step up, and there are a lot of other things to consider. But again, there is nothing that you can't figure out through Google, phone calls, and emails. If we didn't know something, or if we wanted to figure something out, we would speak to people who are doing it, or we would speak to the relevant organizational body who would be able to give us an answer. And I will actually give some credit to CNC Building Control, because actually they were really good. I know some people may complain about them, but actually we had an excellent experience with them. And even just last week, I'm calling about, inquiring for building regs for removing a chimney breast, and they answered the phone within 5 minutes, and they gave me the answer I wanted, in less than that. So if we needed to know something, I said, okay, I'm now at window watertight stage. What do you guys need to see? Okay, we need to come and inspect and make sure this is done, this done, this done, this done. Okay,
that's a really important point to dwell on. I was at a conference at the weekend, and there's loads of nuggets that come out of it. But one of the ones I remember is who, not how. So, who do I know who can answer that question? And often in the PIN meetings, I say to people, you've got experts around you, just ask them. Because I've definitely been guilty in the past of holding on to a question far too long. And I can see you doing that in your daily life. You ask people, you network, you find the answers, and presume because of that, your progress is quicker than it might otherwise be if you Google it, or if you find out, or if you sit on a question. So I think that's really important, just highlighting that. Just ask the question, and keep asking until you sort of know, because I guess now you're at a different level of knowledge, education, etc.
We learned so much from that project. It's hard to put, it's hard to summarize. And like I say, if we didn't know something, we would ask. If we didn't, and this is where you mentioned mindset. I think mindset was a huge part of it. Not that we really realized that too much at the time, but both of us, we are problem solvers. This is me and my wife. We're quite tenacious, in terms of going out there and getting what we want. And so with that, if we came across an issue, it wasn't doom and gloom. It was like, okay, well, how do we solve it? It might be a setback, but it's not going to derail the whole project. Really, we didn't have a choice. We had to get it over the line. And so with that, it came, okay, well, what's the problem? How do I solve it? And also, I think this probably goes a little sort of relates to my career, if you like. So my career is nothing to do with property. Property is very much an aside for me. And with my career in IT, so I studied computer science, and I have worked as a software engineer and programmer. And with software engineering and programming, quite a lot of the time you are working on other people's code. So you're starting with a code base and you're building on it, or you're editing it, or you're fixing stuff. And so you always got a kind of a base, and you've always got something in mind as to what you're aiming to get to. And I feel like that I treated the property development in the same way, that I could look at what the end goal was. I could go and see, okay, well, how has this person put this wall together? How have they fitted this pipe work? How have they done it? What did they do? And then I break it down and I say, okay, well, what would I need to do in order to sort of translate that starting point, that code base, into what I'm trying to do? How do I retrofit it, or how do I manipulate it into what I'm trying to do? And I can see a path to get there now. And now I know what I'm doing. Okay, and maybe I need some help on the way. Like, for example, there were trades that we absolutely wouldn't have done ourselves for qualification, thankfully there's no gas on site, but getting things signed off by like a qualified electrician, for example, I'm going to need help along the way. But I know what my end goal is. My end goal is to have a consumer unit that's fully wired up, that has a stamp on it that says it's been checked and it's passed. So I can see that. Okay, what do I need to get there? I need to run ring mains. I need to wire up light sockets. I need to wire up switches, etc.